Hello, everybody. Ryan Haley here with Atlantic Shore Sotheby's International Realty, and welcome back to the Running Real Estate Podcast. Today, I'm excited as we are going to, instead of focus on the real estate side of running real estate, we get to talk about one of my passions, which is running. So I'm excited to introduce you to Laura Chance today with Rev 3 and TCR Event Management. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I was worried about that TCR piece. But Laura is joining us today. Last year, about this time, we had your husband Jason on here who kind of gave us a look into your company and some of the events that you put on. And today we get to have you, who gives us a little bit different perspective. Jason spent a lot of time talking about kind of like, the police force and that effort to set up your events, but you're going to give us a little bit different spectrum and look at what goes on with some of your events. So if you don't mind, give us a little history. Tell us about what you guys do.
So, in 2011, our youngest was 2, and we decided we wanted to move back home. And home for us is in St. Michael's, Maryland. And a pipe dream of ours had been to open a bike shop in our small town because there was not a bike shop, and it's wildly popular for cycling in the area. So that was where the whole TCR came from, because we decided to call the shop Try, Cycle, and Run. So we were catering to multi-sport athletes, cyclists, runners. We had a little bit of everything. And eventually, Jason became very passionate about producing events. And we started out, our very first event was a free 5K that we did from our shop on our local nature trail. And it was on 3/14/15, which is Pi Day.
Got it.
Yeah. So it was, we had probably almost 200 people show up, and they brought pies. And it just kind of stemmed from there. So TCR we took from Try, Cycle, and Run. And that became TCR Event Management. And a couple of years ago, we acquired the Rev 3 company, which was a nationally known race company that focused mostly on triathlon. So.
Got it. And so where we came in to know each other a little bit, I became familiar with you, was specifically the Salisbury Marathon,
Correct.
which is one of the events that you put on.
It is. It's actually one of our largest events.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, so obviously with running real estate, we try to keep it somewhat local here to either Ocean City or, Worcester, Wycomico, Sussex counties. Those are like our main service areas from a real estate standpoint. And, about a year ago, I was looking for a marathon to run. I had never run a marathon. I did your half marathon, but I had never run a marathon. I didn't know what to expect. I remember kind of sitting here talking to Jason thinking, oh my gosh, what am I getting into with this full marathon piece? But you have something here on the shore, which is a fantastic opportunity for our listeners and for anybody who wants to either just get into kind of running their first race, their middle of the road race, and then if they really are passionate about it, I mean, you guys are a Boston qualifier.
We are.
As well. Yeah. So maybe we can start with the Salisbury event and tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So Salisbury Marathon, half marathon, and 5K takes place this year, April 6th, 2024. And we have been involved with the event since its inception. So this is year 6 for us. We had the 1 year with COVID that didn't happen, but that was all of the events in spring that year.
Right.
Jason and I, we lived in Salisbury, or just outside Salisbury, technically Del Mar, for almost 12 years while he was part of the Wycomico County Sheriff's Office, and then he was with Worcester County as well. And so when it was announced by the city that they were going to do a marathon, we immediately sort of made contact, and Jason was the race director for the first year, and then we took over production of the event every year following that.
Got it.
But Salisbury is fantastic because it is a flat and fast course. So anyone that is looking for something manageable for their first marathon, I think it's a great course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, flat. I'm not fast, but I like flat. And when I run anywhere else, I'm like, wait a second, there's hills here.
Yeah. And we have almost I want to say every year we've had like a 25% BQ. That word just left my
Boston qualifier?
Yes, Boston qualifier. So I think last year or the year before, it was almost 25% participants actually qualified for Boston.
Which is fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I love running, but I look at those qualifying times and I think to myself, that's like really a whole other level.
It is.
I mean, and then when you think, so 25% of the field is actually going to qualify. Mm-hmm. From that, how many actually get invited?
It all depends. It depends on age group usually.
Right.
Some age groups are way, way competitive. Some of our older age groups, I think we've had quite a few make it and go to Boston. But yeah, Boston qualifier, it's all about how fast you are in relation to other runners your age.
Right. Right. And to be able to do that, to be a course that qualifies for Boston, I mean, you have to have that whole thing completely mapped out. It's like the distance is so important.
It's very important.
I mean, what else goes into that? Like,
so we certify courses as well. Jason's a course certifier through Road Runners Club of America.
Okay.
And it is a process. So we have to set a measurement, and don't quote me on everything, but there's a device that you put on a bicycle called a Jones counter.
Okay.
And you have to have 2 bicycles, 2 Jones counters, and you have to ride the course. Both the half marathon and full are both certified. And you have to take temperature measurements, like you have to dictate all the stuff, and the 2 cyclists have to come within a certain number of ticks on their counter.
Got it.
For it to be certified.
Okay. So this is I always think about this because when you run a race, the cones could be on either side of the road.
Correct.
Right. It could be a full length, full width of the road. 2-lane road.
Yes.
And as a runner, I'm always wondering, so where's the distance actually measured from? Is it like the inside lane, and you see those runners who kind of cut?
So we have to measure taking in consideration tangents. So runners are going to always want to try to take the shortest route.
Right.
So that's where we have to make sure that actually measures the 26.2 for the marathon or 13.1 miles for the half.
Got it. So the cut, if somebody's cutting, that's still going to qualify.
Yeah,
right?
So long as
the
they
distance.
don't skip
Right.
timing mats or hop in a vehicle and get somebody to drive them further along the course, which has happened.
That's amazing. I just want to finish. Yeah. That was my
every
goal.
time when you follow on the app and it shows your splits, it's because you've crossed another timing mat somewhere on the course.
Right.
So and they have to be set specifically for Boston qualifier in certain points so that there's no opportunity for anybody to cheat.
Got it. And there's eyes on you for pretty much the whole course,
Yes.
from what I recall. I mean, the backside's a little
light.
lonely.
Little lonely, little light.
I will say that. I mean, and I told Jason this last year. I mean, when I ran the half marathon 2 years ago, you get to maybe mile 11, something like that,
Yep.
and it says half marathon to the right,
Yes.
full marathon to the left. And I remember when I ran the half thinking to myself, I'm a total loser. I'm copping out. I'm going to the right, even though I had planned to run the half marathon. But thinking to myself, those guys going left, that's a haul. Like they got to go do what I just did.
Yes.
And again. And so last year, as I was preparing, the mental aspect that goes into a marathon the night before, and thinking, can I really do this? Am I crazy? Am I going to be able to go 26.2 miles? Am I going to be able to do this? And when we got to the divide this year, or this 2023, you got to the divide, I went left, and immediately it started to thunder and lightning. it was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this a sign? Am I really doing this? And then for a while, I kind of thought to myself, what if this gets called?
Right. So we knew last year that we were going to have some weather issues, but the forecast looked great, and we were in complete contact that whole time with emergency management and trying to figure out if it was going to be okay and safe to send you guys and let you go. But thankfully, the radar showed everything moving further south as far as the lightning and whatnot.
Yeah. To your point, it did not actually lightning. I think that was just like my thought of God coming down on me. It was definitely thundering for a second or two, and it rained hard. I mean, that was a tough race because I mean my feet were wet and it was windy, and then it got to be like warm for a while. It was just it was kind of weird.
Yeah, the finish line, we got very wet, so
yeah,
definitely. The one, and to that point, that's the one cool thing about this race is that our half marathon participants and marathon participants are all together on the course basically for the first 11 miles. So if you're having a bad day and you're registered for the marathon, you have the option to make that right-hand turn.
Yep.
And our system will automatically switch you to the half marathon, and then you'll still have an official result and a qualified race.
Got it. Well, hopefully I don't need to do that this year.
Hopefully not. We don't
I'm
encourage
excited.
runners to do that, but it is an option.
Yeah. Well, I will say, from a runner's standpoint, the Salisbury Run SBY, that event, doing it 2 years now, I'm excited for year 3 because there's a lot of excitement at the start. Mm-hmm. It's everybody together, like you said, the half and the full together. You've got all different kinds of people. Sure. I mean, I think both years I saw like people from the Naval Academy, like kids from the Naval Academy and their marathon teams there. And you've got people who are 70s, 80s. I mean, it's quite the crew.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
And we get a lot of runners from either the 50 States Marathon Club. And same for the half marathon. We have a map on our social media that shows, who from where is, has registered and is coming to Salisbury with us. And I mean, we had someone from Sweden a couple years ago. She actually came all the way over from Sweden. Yep.
So how many, if you total up everybody for the full, the half, and then the 5K, which is literally something for everybody, how many participants will you have this year?
So we're trending up a little bit in registrations, and it's funny, we're actually trending up in the marathon. Usually the half marathon is our largest field. So I think we will end up probably with 325 marathoners, probably 400 half.
Wow.
And then another 200 or so for the 5K.
That's some big numbers. It's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people.
And then you do a staggered start with the 5K?
We do a slightly staggered start. So we have our Team 360, so our para-athletes.
Okay.
They will start first with their teams to give them some time to get out onto Riverside. And then we'll have everyone else sort of go a couple minutes behind them. We give them time to sort of get to the end of Main Street before we send the other runners. Got
it. And then, I mean, so I'm just thinking to myself, like anybody who's thinking about running their first marathon and what my thoughts were going into it a year ago. A year ago, I had not run any. This will be my 4th. Okay. So I kind of got the bug, and it started in Salisbury, and what they think about before. But I will say, I mean, it's an extremely flat course, but fun course too. You're seeing all of Salisbury, going into neighborhoods that even myself being in real estate, I had not necessarily been in before. Sure. So it's a pretty cool layout as well.
I mean, the one downside to it is we can't have spectators throughout the whole course,
right?
Just because of the size of the roads and things like that in neighborhoods. But that's why we are so excited for our finish line, which is on the downtown plaza in Salisbury, which I think is just a fantastic location.
Absolutely.
And it's so fun when everyone just gets to come slightly uphill to the finish.
I was going to say, it's a hill. You're going uphill. Yeah. Like the biggest hill of the whole race.
Yes, is the finish.
Right.
But it's great. And we have Bart Yasso is our
I was just going to ask you about
announcer.
that.
He'll be back again this year.
Okay.
So
let's talk about that a little bit. Like I said, last year when Jason was here, he kind of just talked about, I mean, he didn't just talk about, but he did focus on the logistics of it and how you get it set up, the cones and the police force and everybody else. But what is your main role? Let's talk about that because it's a little bit different and equally as important, if not more important.
So I handle what we call athlete services in the race world. So my vision always is to make sure every athlete has the best time they can possibly have. And, that starts behind the scenes. I usually choose all of the swag as best I can. We work as a team, but so last year Jason ended up deciding on race belts, which I know a lot of runners didn't understand what they were when they got their bag. But a race belt allows you to have an elastic that you can attach your running bib, your bib number to, without using safety pins. This year, we're still sort of in our planning phases for that. Shirts are ordered. Bib mailings will be going out probably early next week. So anyone that can't make it to one of our packet pickups, we offer to mail your bib. So those sort of things, those details are what I sort of handle. And then I'm also our volunteer coordinator or director, as you would call it. So I make sure all of our water stops or aid stations are filled. Our finish line has got, people handing out medals, making sure there's water, sodas, all of that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, I have a lot of hats I wear, but the whole thing is to make sure every athlete has a memorable experience when they're participating in any of our races.
Yeah, which you certainly do. I mean, for everything from the packet pickup, from what I remember, going over to the Wycomico Civic Center.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's...
We'll be back there again, yes.
Okay, going to the Civic Center and then, everything from the race day, the excitement in the morning, obviously coordinating all the bags,
Bags, yes.
Which I don't take advantage of typically. I typically have all my pockets full, but...
Yeah, it's an option that we found because we had some races that are like a point-to-point where you start one location, you finish somewhere completely different. Salisbury is sort of like that, although your start's only about a mile from your finish. But it gives people an opportunity, people who are naturally cold, they can wear a jacket or a sweatshirt and they can put it in their bag and we'll make sure it's back over at the finish line for them when they're done. So. Yeah.
Yep. So you have that and then the actual start and then, so coordinating all the volunteers, do you specifically seek out groups like volunteer groups?
We do try to. Some people will continuously volunteer from year to year. I work with a lot of the local high schools.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of SGA or National Honor Society, and we offer stipends. So that's why I do focus on groups the most. If they can fill an entire aid station from the start to the finish, whatever the timing is for it, we offer stipend up to $200.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people jump on it for that. We've got a group from Tidal Health that's going to be doing an aid station. I have Boy Scouts. Mm-hmm. They're another one. So, got
it. And so one thing I always worry about a little bit is, when doing my first one, especially, I was, conscientious of my time. I was trying to think like, all right, so I got to finish this. I don't want to be the slowest one out there, but I mean, so there is a time limit, right?
There is. So we have a 7-hour cutoff. Okay. And a lot of that does come down to law enforcement. We don't want to congest the roads the entire day. We want to make sure that everybody can get back home safely. But yeah, so 7 hours is our cutoff. First year it was 8, and it really kind of pushed things a little too far for us as far as all of those resources go. It's a long day, but so 7 hours is our cutoff for the marathon.
Right. And I will say that, from what I remember going out, you could be, I guess, going down towards Eden a little bit, in that way, and you're still having aid stations, sure. Out there. So yep. the entire course has got, very well covered when it comes to
yes.
Getting water and gels and mm-hmm. Gatorade and
yep.
everything else I can remember. But then the best part, and this is, I think, not partially, but the big part of your focus is that finish line.
Yes.
The experience that the athlete gets when they're running up the hill and they're crossing over. So tell me about that a little bit and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, so coming up the hill, BART is great for getting out into sort of the finish area and calling runners in. We have what's called a finisher's mat, or an announcer's mat, I'm sorry. So as you're coming up Main Street, there's a mat that is sending your name and your information to our announcer.
That's how he knows.
That's how he knows who you are, yes. And there's critical information that can be in there if it's your first marathon. Sometimes those details will show up for him. If it's your birthday, what state you come from, those sort of things.
Yeah.
So the idea is to really get you hyped up to cross that finish. And then, we've got our volunteer group right on the other side, ready with your medal, with whatever else you might need to be your cheerleaders. And the great part of it being right there on the downtown plaza is that we can have tons of spectators. Mm-hmm. They can fill the sidewalks on either side of the finish chute. So,
yeah, it's a pretty cool experience.
Yes, and then we have the AMP studio music students, they usually have their stage set up now. Last year was a little rough with the weather, but I have Strive Sports Physical Therapy and Driven Physical Therapy. They'll be on site for some active recovery, massage, Normatec boots, that sort of thing for all athletes. We are planning, as of right now, to offer Big Truck Brewing or Big Truck Farms beers at the finish.
Yeah.
We partnered with them recently for another event.
How many drink tickets do you
You get 2.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have probably 4 offerings from them at the finish.
That's pretty cool. I mean, the whole, yeah, after you do something like that and you finish, whether it's a 5K, whether it's a half, whether it's the full, I mean, it's such a good feeling to run across. You hear somebody announce your name and
Sure.
then you get to celebrate a little bit.
Yeah.
With some food and some drink and recovery.
Yep.
Makes you feel good.
It does.
So, like I said, the Salisbury event's been fantastic. This is the 6th year.
6th year.
Excited for it. Anybody who's looking to pick up a race locally here on the shore should definitely check it out. Where can they go for that particular race? Is Facebook the best spot? Where's the spot to kind of see all of your offerings?
All of our offerings, the best way to find them is our website, www.rev3tri.com. That will show you all of the events that we own and produce.
Okay.
And then for the Salisbury, it is runsby.com. I mean, that's the best way to see everything that we're offering for this year's event.
Okay. So Salisbury is just one piece of it.
It is just one piece.
Yeah,
it's a big piece, but it's one.
Yeah. So what other events do you put together?
So we do everything from 5Ks to marathons to century bike rides, and triathlon is sort of where everything sort of started for us. We have 5 races on the Eastern Shore. It's called our Eastern Shore Triathlon Series. And the first one is May 5th, and that's in Bivalve. So we call it Rev 3 Nanacoke River. And from there we have, we're in Nanacoke, and then we go to Crisfield. We have a sprint and Olympic triathlon in Crisfield. From there we go to Pocomoke, and then we're down in Snow Hill, and then we have one in Stevensville as well.
Okay.
But we also have races in Williamsburg. We're in Warrenton, Virginia, for a couple other triathlons, and swims, open water swims. We have a 2-mile open water swim in Cambridge in May. We are the race director and production company for the Great Chesapeake Bay Swim, which is a 4.4-mile swim across the Chesapeake Bay. And we have a couple other open water swims we introduced this year in our locations where we have our tries. So
Got it. So how does preparation, how is it different for something like that? I mean, is it obviously you have to measure it out, but I mean, it's got to be tough. Like you couldn't really get volunteers hanging out. I guess you can on a boat, keeping tabs on people. We have
kayakers. We have some motorized watercraft as well. But mostly our safety crew is on kayaks, and they're just going along with our swimmers. So
got it. That's
same thing for a triathlon. So we have either paddle boards or kayakers out with our swimmers for that portion of the event.
Got it. Yeah, the logistics of it, stuff you just don't think about,
Yes.
I mean, you kind of show up, you do your thing, you run, but you don't necessarily always think about everything that goes into that production,
sure.
Which it's pretty in depth. Now, so you're swimming across the finish line there. You're not necessarily running up a hill with an announcer. So how does what happens after that?
Well, we do have a finish line. Like we put an arch out. They have to come up out of the water and they run across the mat. Sometimes we have an announcer, but sometimes we don't. We do have one for the Chesapeake Bay Swim, which is it's 1,000 swimmers that swim across. Well, 700 will swim across the bay, and then another 300 will do a 1 mile out and back swim. So, I mean, we can do anything for a race. Aside from the events that we own and produce, we are also a timing company. So events that are already established, we offer timing services, and that can be for a road race. We do cross country, like not track and field, but cross country.
Right, with schools.
For schools, yep.
Yeah.
So
A little bit of everything.
a little bit of everything, yes.
So how did you get into it? how did you?
So, before we had kids, Jason fell in love with cycling when we were here in Salisbury. Did Seagull Century a few times. He pulled me into it one year. So we both really loved cycling. And then that led to Jason getting into multisport because one discipline was never enough for him. He had to see what else he could do. So he got into triathlon with a group down here through the Y-Tri program in Salisbury. It's based out of the YMCA.
Okay.
And it just kind of went from there. We fell in love with this sport, but knew on the Eastern Shore that there weren't any companies actually where you could go to a retail store and find what you needed to do a triathlon the next day. So we opened up a Tricycle and Run in St. Michael's in 2011 with the idea that it was a place that somebody that wanted to do their first sprint triathlon the next week could come in and they could get running shoes, they could get a bike, helmet, whatever they would need.
Right.
In one place and not have to go to Annapolis or Baltimore or try and, outsource stuff from all these other places. So that's where we sort of started, was with a retail company, and retail became, it was tough in a small town, we'll say. So when Ironman came into Cambridge, so we have the Eagleman 70.3 event, which takes place every June. And it had been run by a nonprofit for many years. And that nonprofit, unfortunately, folded at one point in time. And at that time, Ironman came in, and we were friendly and knew the race director that had been working it. And so he reached out to Jason and said, "Hey, do you want to get involved with this?" And he sort of fell in love with the whole event production from that point. And in 2015 was when we established TCR Event Management as a sister company to our retail store. Got behind all that.
And then the Rev 3 piece, that was what year?
That was 2021 was when we made the purchase acquisition.
Okay.
Yeah, the end of that year.
And what did that allow you to do? What was that? That was name?
So it gives us, Rev 3 has been known in the world for a long time as a legitimate, mostly triathlon company. It's trademarked. It gave us, we acquired tons of assets as far as like truss to build finish lines with, which is what we use in Salisbury. Swim buoys for those sort of things. We have a UTV. So there was a lot of physical assets that came along with it that sort of allowed us to expand our offerings. And we have, the Rev 3. I don't have a shirt on today with that logo, but it's a widely recognized logo.
Right.
So.
Well, you got the Run SBY.
I do have Run SBY on.
And that's the next one. It's the next one on my radar here coming up April 6th, though. That's totally looking forward to that. So from that, anything new on the course this year? Do you switch it up? Do you change things?
Not when it's certified.
So once it's certified, it's got to stay the same.
Yep.
The only thing that can change is really the experience for
Correct.
the athlete
Yes.
afterwards, or
Yes.
kind of, through it.
Yep.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited for the experience.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back again this year.
No. God willing, I'll be there. 7 a.m. start. Is that the marathon?
7 a.m. start.
All right. Hopefully finish before noon.
Hopefully.
That's my goal. I don't need to be the fastest.
Okay.
I just want to get through it.
Sure.
All right. So what else? What else do we need to know? So like I said, my goal here with this is really to try to spread the word of your great company and events on the shore that people can take advantage of. When it comes to running. Sure. And once again, for them to, if they do have interest in getting involved, and it's available for anybody. You can do a 5K. You can do the
5K, half marathon. We would love to add another distance in there, but we just can't logistically do it.
I want an ultra. This is what I'm envisioning. So I've been getting braver and running a little bit further, and I'm looking for a road ultra. That seems to be tough to find.
Yeah, a lot of the ultras are
like they go on the trails.
Yeah, the trails.
And I've got like a bad toe.
Sure.
I think I'm going to twist an ankle.
We so in 2022 we were planning actually a road ultra,
Really?
but we just couldn't get the traction for registrations, and eventually we had to just say,
Yeah.
42 people for 100 miles. So we had a 30, 50, and 100, and it was all on the Cap Trail. That
Okay.
runs from Richmond to like the Williamsburg area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I just want the beginner's ultra.
yeah, but
the
so that's
50K, 31.
Yeah, the Cap Trail is paved.
Okay.
So
Got it. I think there's one. I saw something up in Pennsylvania that I kind of got my eye on. So we'll see.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get back into the ultra.
I should just run faster marathons. That's what I need to focus on. So, okay. So once again, if people have interest in signing up this year, there's still spots available.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and they just go to those spots where we directed them earlier. We can link it up here below.
Yep.
But thank you for taking the time to come down here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, looking forward to the event, and say hi to Jason for us.
Sure will.
And thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. If you like this information, please like and subscribe. Check out the Run SBY and the rest of their Rev 3 events. And we look forward to seeing you back here next week on another edition of the Running Real Estate Podcast.